Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, "My Sister Tried to Ruin My Engagement Party Out of Spite." I'm Rosa, 28 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse. I met my fiance, Ethan, about 3 years ago when he brought his nephew into the ER with a broken arm. Ethan is 30 and works as a high school history teacher. We hit it off right away. He was so sweet with his nephew, cracking jokes to keep the little boy distracted from the pain. We exchanged numbers, and the rest, as they say, is history. Ethan proposed on our 2-year anniversary with a beautiful picnic in the park where we had our first date. It was absolutely perfect, and I was over the moon. We set the date for the wedding about a year out and started planning right away. One of the first things on our to-do list was to have an engagement party to celebrate with our family and friends. My parents offered to host it at their house, which had a big backyard, perfect for a garden party. We picked a date about 2 months after the proposal and sent out invitations. At first, everything seemed fine. My sister Chloe, who's 2 years younger than me, congratulated us and offered to help with the party planning. I was touched and thought maybe we were finally moving past our childhood rivalry. How naive I was. The first sign of trouble came when Chloe insisted on being involved in every tiny detail of the party planning. She had an opinion on everything, from the menu to the decorations to the guest list. And of course, her ideas were always in direct opposition to what Ethan and I wanted. "You can't seriously be thinking of serving chicken at the party," she scoffed when I mentioned our menu ideas. "That's so basic. You should do something more upscale, like duck or lamb." I tried to explain that we wanted to keep things relatively simple and that not everyone likes fancy meats like duck. But Chloe wouldn't let it go. She went behind my back to my mom, convincing her that chicken was embarrassing for such an important event. It took a lot of back and forth, but finally put my foot down. "Chloe, I appreciate your input, but this is my and Ethan's engagement party. We get to make the final decisions," I told her firmly. She pouted and sulked, but I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. As the party got closer, Chloe's behavior became more and more erratic. She'd call me multiple times a day with urgent questions about the party. Half the time there were things we'd already decided on. "Rosa, what color tablecloths are we using again? I was thinking we should switch to pink instead of white," she'd say, even though we'd settled on the white weeks ago. It was exhausting, but I tried to be patient. I figured she was just excited and wanted to be involved. Again, how naive I was. About a week before the party, I got a call from the bakery where we'd order our cake. "Hi, this is Sarah. You made a catering request a while ago, and I just wanted to confirm the change to your cake order," the woman said. I frowned, confused. "Change? What change?" "Your sister called yesterday and changed the design and flavor of the cake," Sarah explained. "She said you wanted a red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting instead of the vanilla cake with buttercream you originally ordered." My jaw dropped. I hate red velvet cake, and Ethan is allergic to cream cheese. There's no way we would have ordered that. "I'm so sorry, but there must have been some mistake," I told Sarah. "We definitely did not authorize that change. Can you please keep the original order?" Sarah was very understanding and said she switched it back right away. When I confronted Chloe about it, she played innocent. "Oh, I thought you changed your mind about the cake. My bad," she said with a shrug, but I could see the glint in her eye. I knew exactly what she was doing. From that point on, I made sure to double-check every single vendor and detail for the party. Sure enough, Chloe had tried to make several other unauthorized changes, switching the flower order to include lilies, which I'm allergic to, changing the start time of the invitations, even trying to uninvite some of my friends. I was livid, but also confused. Why was Chloe going to such lengths to mess with a party? When I tried to talk to her about it, she just gaslighted me, insisting she was only trying to help and that I was being paranoid. Finally, 2 days before the party, I overheard a phone conversation that made everything click into place. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but I was dropping off some supplies at my parents' house, and Chloe was in the backyard on the phone, unaware that I was there. I know it sucks, I heard her say. I can't believe she's getting married before me. She always has to one-up me at everything. My heart sank as I listened to my sister rant to whoever was on the other end of the call. She complained about how I was the golden child who always overshadowed her, how it wasn't fair that I was getting married first when she'd been with her boyfriend longer, how she was going to make sure my engagement party wasn't as perfect as everyone expected it to be. I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I knew Chloe and I had our issues, but I never realized how deep her resentment went. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew that would only make things worse. I needed a plan. That night, I called an emergency family meeting with my parents and Ethan. I laid out everything that had been going on with Chloe and my fears about what she might do to sabotage the party. My mom was in denial at first. Oh, honey, I'm sure Chloe doesn't mean any harm. She's probably just excited and got carried away, she said. But my dad, who has always been more perceptive about these things, saw the truth. No, this goes beyond normal sibling rivalry, he said gravely. We need to make sure she can't cause any more trouble. We came up with a plan. My parents would keep Chloe busy with last-minute errands on the day of the party, so she wouldn't have time for any shenanigans. Ethan and I would do one final check with all the vendors to make sure everything was as we'd originally planned, and we'd enlist some of our most trusted friends to run interference if Chloe tried anything during the party itself. The day of the engagement party dawned bright and clear. Despite my anxiety about Chloe, I couldn't help but feel excited as I got ready. Ethan and I had been through so much to get to this point, and I was determined to enjoy celebrating our love with our family and friends. I arrived at my parents' house early to help with setup. To my surprise, everything seemed to be going smoothly. The backyard looked beautiful, with twinkling lights strung up in the trees and the faces of fresh flowers on every table. The catering team was setting up the buffet when I was relieved to see our original menu was intact. As guests started to arrive, I kept an eye out for Chloe. She showed up about 30 minutes late, looking flustered. Apparently, my parents' plan to keep her busy had worked. She'd been running all over town on various urgent errands they've invented. For the first hour or so of the party, things were perfect. Ethan and I mingled with our guests, accepting congratulations and showing off my ring. The food was delicious, the music was great, and everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. But I should have known it was too good to last. As we were getting ready to cut the cake, I noticed Chloe slipping away from the crowd. A few minutes later, I heard a commotion near the gift table. Oh no! What a terrible accident! Chloe's voice rang out dramatically. I rushed over to find her standing next to the gift table, which was now soaking wet. A pitcher that had been full of sangria was tipped over. Its contents spilled all over the carefully wrapped presents. I'm so sorry, Chloe explained, her eyes wide with fake innocence. I was just trying to refill my glass, and I must have knocked it over. I saw red. There was no way this was an accident. The gift table was nowhere near where the drinks were being served. Before I could say anything, my best friend, one that I'd known since middle school, stepped in. No worries, accidents happen, she said cheerfully. Let's get this cleaned up. She shot me a meaningful look as she ushered Chloe away from the table. She and a few other friends quickly whisked the gifts away to dry them off and salvage what they could. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. I wasn't going to let Chloe ruin this day. But she wasn't done yet. As Ethan and I prepared to give a thank you speech to our guests, I noticed Chloe whispering urgently to our younger cousin. She looked confused, then alarmed. She started to stand up, but Ethan's sister, Emma, who we'd enlist as part of our Chloe containment team, smoothly intercepted her. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw Emma shake her head firmly and guide Megan back to her seat. Whatever Chloe had been trying to instigate had been thwarted. As the party went on, Chloe made a few more attempts at sabotage. She tried to start an argument between two of our friends over some ancient drama. She accidentally bumped into the DJ table, nearly knocking over his equipment. She even attempted to give an impromptu insult-laden toast before my dad deftly took the microphone away. But thanks to our preparation and the help of our friends and family, none of her schemes succeeded. By the end of the night, Chloe was visibly frustrated, while Ethan and I were basking in the love and support of our guests. As the last of the guests were leaving, I finally decided it was time to confront Chloe. I found her sulking by the remnants of the cake. "Chloe, we need to talk," I said firmly. She looked up, a defensive expression already forming on her face. "About what?" I took a deep breath. "About why you've been trying to ruin my engagement party. And don't try to deny it. I overheard your phone conversation the other day." Chloe's face went pale, then flushed red with anger. "So, you were spying on me. Typical. You always have to know everything, don't you?" I shook my head, refusing to be baited. "That's not the point, Chloe. I want to understand why you're so angry about my engagement. I thought you'd be happy for me." "Happy for you?" Chloe scoffed. "Why should I be? You always get everything. The better grades, the cooler friends, the perfect job. And now you're getting married first too, even though I've been with my boyfriend longer? It's not fair." I was taken aback by the vehemence in her voice. "Chloe, life isn't a competition. My happiness doesn't take anything away from you." "Easy for you to say," she muttered. "You're not the one who's always been second best." I felt my patience wearing thin. "So that gives you the right to try and ruin one of the most important days of my life? Do you have any idea how childish and selfish you're being?" Chloe's eyes narrowed. "Oh, here we go, Saint Rosa. Always so perfect and mature. You have no idea what it's like to live in your shadow. And you have no idea what it's like to constantly walk on eggshells around you." I shot back. "Do you think I enjoy having to double-check everything because I'm afraid you might sabotage it out of spite?" Our voices were rising now, years of pent-up resentment spilling out. "You never had to work for anything," Chloe yelled. "Everything just falls into your lap." "That's not true, and you know it," I retorted. "I've worked hard for everything I have. It's not my fault. You're too busy feeling sorry for yourself to put in the effort." Chloe recoiled as if I'd slapped her. "How dare you? You have no idea how hard I've tried to live up to you." "Then stop trying to live up to me and live your own life," I shouted, frustration overwhelming me. "I'm so tired of your jealousy and your schemes. I can't do this anymore, Chloe. I can't keep wondering when you're going to try and undermine me next." "Fine," Chloe spat. "You want me out of your life? Consider it done. I hope you and Ethan are very happy together in your perfect little world." She stormed off, leaving me standing there shaking with anger and hurt. The next few months were tense, to say the least. Chloe and I didn't speak at all, communicating only through our parents when absolutely necessary. Family dinners became awkward affairs, with Mom and Dad trying desperately to bridge the gap between us. As the wedding approached, I had to make one of the hardest decisions of my life. After much soul-searching and many tearful conversations with Ethan, I decided not to have Chloe as a bridesmaid. I knew it would hurt her and shock our family, but I couldn't bear the thought of spending my wedding day worried about what she might do to sabotage it. When I broke the news to my parents, they were devastated. "Rosa, are you sure about this?" Mom pleaded. "She's your sister. Surely you can work things out." I shook my head, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I just can't trust her. Not with something this important." Dad looked torn. "I understand why you feel this way, sweetheart, but this could permanently damage your relationship with Chloe." "I know," I said softly, "but I think the relationship was already damaged beyond repair." When Chloe found out, she was furious. She left me a scathing voicemail, calling me every name in the book and swearing she'd never forgive me. Part of me was hurt, but another part felt oddly relieved. At least now everything was out in the open. The weeks leading up to the wedding were stressful, with our parents constantly trying to mediate between us. But I stood my ground. This was my day. I wasn't going to let Chloe's jealousy taint it. On the day of the wedding, Chloe didn't show up. My parents were upset, but I had expected it. As I walked down the aisle towards Eden, I felt a mix of emotions: joy at marrying the love of my life, sadness at the fractured state of my family, and a strange sense of freedom. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception was filled with love and laughter. As I looked around at our friends and family celebrating with us, I realized that while losing my relationship with Chloe hurt, I had gained so much more. I had a husband who loved and supported me unconditionally, friends who had stood by me through this difficult time, and the strength to stand up for myself and my happiness. In the years that followed, Chloe and I remained estranged. We saw each other at family events, exchanging cool pleasantries, but nothing more. It was painful, especially during holidays and when our parents tried to get us to reconcile. But each time, the memory of her betrayal and the hurtful things she'd said stopped me from reaching out. Ethan and I built a happy family together. We had 2 beautiful children, and I threw myself into my career, eventually becoming head nurse at the pediatric ward. I often wondered how Chloe was doing, but I resisted the urge to ask our parents too many questions. 5 years after the wedding, I ran into Chloe's ex-boyfriend at a coffee shop. We chatted awkwardly for a few minutes before he dropped a bombshell. "You know, Rosa, I always felt bad about how things ended up between you and Chloe," he said. "The thing she was planning to do at your wedding, I'm glad you found out in time." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean, the thing she was planning?" He looked uncomfortable. "Oh, I thought you knew. That's why you didn't invite her, right? She had all these plans. She was going to object during the ceremony. She had a speech prepared to give at the reception about all your past boyfriends. She even talked about trying to seduce Ethan to prove he wasn't good enough for you." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All this time, I'd felt guilty about cutting Chloe out of the wedding. Now I realized I'd made the right choice. That night, I told Ethan everything Chloe's ex-boyfriend had said. He held me as I cried, mourning the sister I'd lost and the relationship we'd never have. "You did the right thing," Ethan assured me. "You protected yourself and our relationship. That's nothing to feel guilty about." As the years went by, I came to terms with the loss of my relationship with Chloe. It hurt, especially when I saw how close my own children were and thought about the end they'll never really know. But I also recognized that sometimes letting go of toxic relationships is necessary for our own well-being. Chloe and I never reconciled. She moved to another state, started her own family. We exchanged Christmas cards with formal, impersonal notes. Our parents eventually stopped trying to push us back together, accepting that some rifts can be mended. There are times when I miss the sister I used to have, the one I shared secrets and dream with as a little girl. But then I remember the pain and betrayal, the constant competition and undermining. And I know that while the loss of that relationship is sad, the peace and happiness I've found in its absence are worth it. In the end, I learned that sometimes the hardest choices, like cutting ties with family, can also be the most necessary for our own growth and happiness. It wasn't the happily ever after I'd imagined as a child with a big, close-knit family all around, but it was my happily ever after on my own terms, and that I realized was enough. Here are my thoughts about this story. So let's unpack this mess, shall we? First off, can we talk about Chloe? I get sibling rivalry. I'm sure everyone with a sibling or 2 or more does. But this chick took it to a whole new level. I mean, planning to object at the wedding, trying to seduce her sister's fiancé. That's some soap opera level drama right there. Part of me wants to be like, "Chloe, girl, get a life." But another part of me kind of feels bad for her, you know? I mean, imagine always feeling like you're living in someone's shadow. That's gotta suck. But here's the thing. At some point, you gotta grow up and realize that life isn't a competition. Rosa wasn't trying to one-up Chloe. She was just living her life. And Chloe's inability to see that and be happy for her sister, that's on her. Maybe her entire life situation might not be a hell of her own making, But you can't just hate on everyone for something you're going through. Then again, once I think about it, it's also in part her fault, her misery, I mean. She herself whined about how she was in a relationship longer but wasn't married yet. But she was also the one to plan out some elaborate scheme of seducing her sister's fiancé. That's not how this works, girl. Get it together if you really want that happy ending. Now let's talk about Rosa for a sec. I gotta say, I respect her for standing her ground. It couldn't have been easy to cut her sister out of the wedding. I mean, can you imagine that conversation with parents? Hey, mom and dad, so I'm not inviting your other daughter to my wedding. Yikes. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to protect your own happiness. And let's be real, after finding out what Chloe had planned, Rosa dodged a freaking bullet. Or a bullet train, more accurately. Can you imagine if Chloe had gone through with all that stuff at the wedding? It would have been a total shit show. But here's where it gets really heavy. The fact that they never reconciled. That's the part that really got to me. Like, I kept waiting for that moment where they'd bump into each other years later and have this tearful makeup scene. But nope, life doesn't always work out like a Hallmark movie, I guess. It's crazy to think about how one day you can be sharing secrets with your siblings and the next you're sending awkward Christmas cards once a year. It really makes you think about the relationships in your own life, you know? Like, how many people have we cut out or drifted away from over the years? It's a tough pill to swallow, but not all relationships are meant to last forever. Sometimes people grow apart or the toxicity just becomes too much. And it's okay to walk away from that, even if it's family. Actually, especially if it's family, because those are the relationships that can hurt us the most, right? I don't know, man. This story's got me all up in my feelings. It's making me want to call my relatives and tell them I love them. But it's also making me appreciate the peace in my life. Sometimes we hold onto relationships out of obligation or habit, but at what cost? And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. My husband's colleague tried to ruin our family business. My husband Jeff and I have run a successful family-owned bakery for the past 10 years. We've poured our hearts and souls into this business, working long hours to create a place that brings joy to our community through delicious baked goods. But last year, everything we built was nearly destroyed by someone we thought we could trust. It all started when we decided to expand our bakery. Business had been booming and we were struggling to keep up with demand. We needed more space and more staff. Jeff suggested bringing on his colleague Kyle as a manager to help oversee the expansion. Kyle's got great experience in the restaurant industry. Jeff told me one night as we were closing up shop, he could really help us take things to the next level. I was hesitant at first. We'd always kept the business just between the two of us, with a small staff of bakers and counter help. But I trusted Jeff's judgment, and I had to admit we needed the help. Okay, I agreed. Let's give it a shot. Kyle started the following week. At first, everything seemed great. He was charming and energetic, full of ideas for how to streamline our operations and increase profits. The staff seemed to like him, and I started to feel like maybe this expansion wasn't going to be as stressful as I'd feared. But then, little things started to go wrong. Shipments of ingredients would arrive late or not at all. Equipment would mysteriously break down. Staff started calling out sick more often than usual. I chalked it up to growing pains at first. Expansion was bound to have some hiccups, right? But as the problems continued and started getting worse, I began to suspect something more sinister was at play. The first real red flag came about 2 months after Kyle started. We had a big order for a wedding, 300 cupcakes and a 3-tiered cake. It was the kind of high-profile job that could lead to lots more business if we nailed it. I'd stayed in late the night before to finish up the cupcakes, leaving just the final assembly of the cake for the morning of the wedding. When I arrived at 5 a.m. to put the finishing touches on everything, I was horrified to find that all 300 cupcakes were ruined. The frosting had melted and slid off each one, pooling in sticky puddles in the boxes. "How is this possible?" I muttered to myself, fighting back tears as I surveyed the damage. The walk-in fridge was set to the correct temperature. There was no reason for this to have happened. I called Jeff in a panic, and we scrambled to remake everything in time for the 2 p.m. wedding. We just barely pulled it off, but it was incredibly stressful, and we had to comp a significant portion of the order to make up for the last-minute change in design. As we were cleaning up that evening, exhausted and disheartened, Kyle strolled in looking fresh as a daisy. "Heard there was some trouble with a big wedding order," he said casually. "Shame about that. Hope it doesn't hurt our reputation too much." Something about his tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He didn't seem concerned or sympathetic. He almost sounded pleased. I shook off the feeling. I was just tired and stressed. I told myself Kyle was here to help us, not sabotage us. But incidents like that kept happening. A shipment of our most expensive chocolate went missing right before a major holiday rush. Our new industrial mixer broke down on the busiest day of the week. Our usually loyal customers started complaining about a decline in quality, complaints that made no sense given that Jeff and I were still overseeing all the baking ourselves. I tried to talk to Jeff about my suspicions, but he brushed them off. "Kyle's been working his tail off to help us, Catherine," he said. "I'm sure it's just bad luck. Growing pains, like you said." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I started paying closer attention to Kyle, watching him when he didn't know I was looking, and what I saw chilled me to the bone. One day, I caught him accidentally knocking a tray of pastries on the floor right before a big rush. Another time, I overheard him on the phone with one of our suppliers, changing an order to the wrong ingredients. And worst of all, I saw him tampering with the temperature controls on our walk-in fridge, the same fridge where those wedding cupcakes had been ruined. I knew I needed hard evidence if I was going to convince Jeff, so I set up a small camera in the office, hidden among other baking books in a shelf. It felt wrong to resort to spying, but I was desperate to protect our business. The very next day, the camera caught Kyle in the act. He came into the office late at night, long after closing. I watched in horror as he accessed our computer, pulling up customer files and financial records. He copied everything into a flash drive, then deleted a bunch of orders from our system. My hands shook as I showed Jeff the footage. His face went pale, then red with anger. "I can't believe it," he said, his voice slow and dangerous. "Why would he do this? I trusted him." "I don't know," I said, "but we need to confront him, and we need to call the police." Jeff nodded grimly. "First thing tomorrow morning." We arrived extra early the next day, determined to catch Kyle before he could do any more damage. But when we pulled up to the bakery, we saw flashing lights. Police cars were parked out front, and officers were going in and out of our shop. My heart sank. What now? We rushed inside to find absolute chaos. Display cases were smashed, baked goods strewn everywhere. It looked like a tornado had torn through the place. An officer approached us. "Are you the owners?" he asked. We nodded, too shocked to speak. "I'm afraid there's been a break-in," the officer said. "It looks like vandalism. Mostly, but also," he hesitated, looking uncomfortable. "What is it?" Jeff asked. "Well, we found some substances in your kitchen. Illegal substances. We're going to need to ask you some questions." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Illegal substances in our kitchen? That's impossible," I sputtered. "We would never have anything like that at all, let alone in the store." "I'm sure there's an explanation," the officer said, not unkindly, "but we have to investigate. I'm afraid we're going to have to shut you down until we get to the bottom of this." Shut down? My mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Everything we'd worked for destroyed in a single night. And then I saw Kyle standing off to the side, watching the scene unfold with a small smile on his face. Rage boiled up inside me. Before I knew what I was doing, I was storming towards him. "You!" I shouted. "You did this!" Kyle's eyes widened in mock innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about, Catherine. I just got here. I can't believe someone would do this to you guys." "Don't play dumb," I hissed. We have proof. We know you've been sabotaging us for months. Kyle's facade cracked for just a moment, a flicker of anger and fear crossing his face, but he quickly composed himself. I think the stress of this situation is making you irrational, Catherine, he said loudly, clearly for the benefit of the nearby officers. Maybe you should sit down, take a breath. I wanted to scream, to grab him and shake him until he confessed, but I knew that would only make things worse. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Officer, I said, turning to the policeman who had spoken to us earlier, I know this looks bad, but I promise you I had nothing to do with any illegal substances. In fact, we have reason to believe this man, I pointed at Kyle, is responsible for all of this. The officer looked skeptical, but he listened as I explained about the camera we'd set up, the footage we'd capture of Kyle stealing our data and sabotaging our business. Do you have footage? He asked. I nodded. It's on our computer. I can show you. As I pulled up the video, I saw Kyle trying to edge towards the door, but Jeff blocked his path. You're not going anywhere, Jeff growled. The officer watched the footage, his expression growing more serious by the moment. When it was done, he turned to Kyle. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me. We have some questions for you. Kyle's cool demeanor finally cracked. This is ridiculous, he shouted. They're setting me up. They're the ones dealing drugs out of this place. But his protest fell on deaf ears. As the officer led Kyle away in handcuffs, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It wasn't over, far from it, but at least now the truth was coming out. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of police interviews, insurance claims, and cleaning up the mess Kyle had left behind. We discovered that he had been working for our biggest competitor, hired to infiltrate our business and destroy it from the inside. The illegal substances found in our kitchen had been planted by him during the break-in. It was a long, difficult road to rebuild what we've lost. We had to work hard to regain the trust of our customers and repair our reputation in the community. But slowly, surely, we started to bounce back. 6 months after that terrible morning, we were finally ready to reopen. We'd remodeled the bakery, creating an even warmer and more inviting space. We'd hired new staff, carefully vetted this time, and created some exciting new recipes. As we prepared for our grand reopening, I couldn't help but reflect on everything we'd been through. It had been the hardest year of our lives, but in a way, it had made us stronger. Jeff and I had learned to trust each other's instincts more, to communicate better, and to never take our business or each other for granted. The morning of the reopening, we stood behind the counter, hands clasped tightly as we waited for the first customers to arrive. You ready for this? Jeff asked, giving my hand a squeeze. I took a deep breath and nodded. More than ready. As the door chimed and our first customer walked in, I felt a surge of pride and determination. We had weathered the storm. We had fought for our dream and won. And now we are ready to make our little bakery sweeter than ever. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity as we worked to rebuild our business and our reputation. Word spread quickly about what had happened with Kyle, and thankfully, most of our longtime customers rallied around us. They were angry on our behalf and eager to support us as we got on our feet. But we still had a lot of work to do. The damage Kyle had done both physically to our shop and to our business relationships was extensive. We had to reach out to all of our suppliers, reassuring them that the late payments and mixed-up orders were not our fault and promising to make things right. We also had to deal with the legal fallout. The police investigation into Kyle's activities revealed that he had been involved in far more than just sabotaging our bakery. He had been engaging in corporate espionage for years, selling trade secrets and insider information to the highest bidder. Jeff and I found ourselves spending almost as much time talking to lawyers and giving depositions as we did baking. It was exhausting and stressful, but we were determined to see justice done. I can't believe how deep this goes, Jeff said one night as we were going over some legal documents. It wasn't just about ruining us. Kyle was playing a much bigger game. I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. We're lucky we caught him when we did. Who knows how much more damage he could have done. As the criminal case against Kyle progressed, we also decided to file a civil lawsuit against him and the competitor who had hired him. It was a risky move. Legal battles are never cheap, but we felt we had to do something to recoup our losses and send a message that this kind of corporate sabotage wouldn't be tolerated. Our lawyer, a sharp-tongued young woman, was confident in our case. "You've got rock-solid evidence," she told us during one of our many meetings, "and the jury is going to love you too. The hard-working small business owners targeted by big bad corporate interests. It's a story that sells itself." Despite her confidence, I still felt sick to my stomach every time I thought about facing Kyle in court. The idea of reliving everything he'd done to us, of having to look him in the eye again, was almost unbearable. But as the months passed and we threw ourselves into rebuilding the bakery, I found my fear turning to determination. We had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let Kyle's actions define us. We were going to come back stronger than ever. The day of the trial finally arrived. Jeff and I dressed in our best clothes, not fancy suits, but the kind of simple, professional attire that said, "Hard-working small business owners." As we walked into the courthouse, Jeff squeezed my hand. "We've got this," he whispered. "No matter what happens in there, we've already won. We're still here, still fighting." I squeezed back, feeling a surge of love and gratitude for my husband. He was right. Whatever the outcome of this trial, we had already proven that we were stronger than Kyle's sabotage. The trial itself was grueling. Over the course of 2 weeks, every detail of Kyle's deception was laid bare. We had to relive every moment of betrayal, every setback, every near disaster. But we also got to tell our story, the story of how we built our business from nothing, how we poured our hearts and souls into every loaf of bread and every frosted cupcake. Kyle's lawyer tried to paint us as incompetent business owners who were trying to blame their failures on his client, but our own attorney was brilliant, methodically presenting the evidence we had gathered and calling witness after witness who testified to Kyle's deceptions. The most powerful moment came when our head baker took the stand. She had been with us almost from the beginning, and Kyle had tried to turn her against us with lies and manipulation. "I've worked in a lot of kitchens," she said, her voice strong and clear. "But I've never worked for anyone who cares as much about their employees, their customers, and their craft as Jeff and Catherine. What the man did to them, to all of us, it's unforgivable." I felt tears welling up in my eyes as she spoke. I hadn't realized how much her support meant to me until that moment. Finally, after days of testimony and arguments, it was time for the jury to deliberate. Jeff and I waited anxiously, barely able to eat or sleep. When we got the call that the jury had reached a verdict, my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. We stood hand in hand as the jury foreman read the verdict. Guilty on all counts in the criminal trial, and in our civil case, the jury awarded us damages that far exceeded what we had asked for. I let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding. It was over. We had won. As we left the courthouse, surrounded by reporters shouting questions, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The nightmare was finally over, but our journey was far from finished. We still had a business to run, our reputation to rebuild. The money from the lawsuit would help, but we knew that our true strength lay in the quality of our products and the relationships we had built with our customers and our community. In the year that followed, we worked harder than ever. We expanded our menu, offering new and exciting flavors alongside our tried and true favorites. We started a program to teach baking skills to at-risk youth in our community. We even wrote a cookbook, sharing the recipes and stories that had made our little bakery so special. Slowly but surely, our business didn't just recover, it thrived. our customer base grew and we started getting write-ups in local and even national food magazines. We were able to hire more staff, providing good jobs with fair wages to people in our community. Sometimes I can't help but think about how far we have come. From the brink of ruin to national recognition, it was more than I had ever dared to dream. As we turn out the lights and lock up every workday, I like to take one last look at our little bakery every time. The next day would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new recipes to perfect. But at night, at that moment, everything always just felt right. We had faced betrayal, fought against seemingly insurmountable odds, and come out stronger on the other side. Our family business hadn't just survived, it had flourished, and as we walked hand in hand into the cool night air, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together, with flour in our hands and love in our hearts. Here are my thoughts about this story. Guys, when Catherine found those ruined wedding cupcakes, I swear I could feel my blood pressure rising. I'd never been so invested in baked goods in my life. And don't even get me started on the break-in scene. When the cops showed up and said they found illegal substances, I was dying and ready to collapse on the floor. Because what? Are Catherine and Jeff? No way. And it wasn't them. Thank the stars that security systems and competent cameras exist now, because things would have looked horrible for the poor couple if that footage didn't exist. And speaking of the lovebirds, I really have to admire it. The way Catherine and Jeff stuck together through it all. I mean, guys, let me tell you, if my partner and I can handle a crisis half as well as these two, I'll consider our relationship a success. The trust, the teamwork, the way they supported each other. It was honestly inspiring and kind of made me crave some fresh baked bread, not gonna lie. Probably from a local business. Support your community. Now, I gotta admit, there was a point where I thought this story might take a dark turn. You know how sometimes these Reddit stories end with the bad guy getting away with it, or the business closing down, leaving you feeling all depressed and stuff? But nope. Not this time. Catherine and Jeff came back swinging, and I was here for it. The trial scene, pure gold. I felt like I was watching an episode of Law and Order, Special Bakery Unit. And when their employee, the head baker, took the stand, it's just you could really feel how much this bakery meant to everyone involved. And can we talk about that plot twist with Kyle being involved in corporate espionage? I did not see that coming. It's like 1 minute we're worried about some jerk messing up the fridge temperature, and the next we're in the middle of a full-blown corporate thriller. Netflix, if you're listening, I smell a potential series here. I was fully expecting Kyle to just have been a bad, greedy person, but I guess he gets to be dubiously upgraded to bad, greedy, and paid person. The ending was stunning, though. It's like they took all the negative energy Kyle threw at them and turned it into something positive. And isn't that what we all hope would do in a crisis? I mean, I'd like to think if someone tried to sabotage my YouTube channel, I'd come back with even better content. Although, let's be real, I'd probably just curl up in a ball and cry for a week. Mad respect to Catherine and Jeff for their resilience. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.